Good morning, everybody. John Chester, Operations Section Chief for with Southwest Team 2. Today is Friday, June 3rd, 2022, and we'll get started with our overview of the incident on the South Zone. So starting up in what we call Branch 11, Divisions Alpha, Bravo, and we have two repair groups. So the repair groups are starting back up here in the Gascon area, working their way out, and then here in the middle area, Chavez and this area in here, working their way out, touching up all the dozer lines, hand lines, broken fences, that kind of stuff that was the damage that was done during the suppression efforts. So with that, those folks are continuing to assess any places that may have been missed, continuing to look at what needs to be done, and we've got a significant amount of people up there still working on that. Division Alpha Bravo is down here in the Big Pine area. They're starting to work their way out, or they're pretty much worked their way out, coming out of the canyon here. They're going to continue to be in there for, any calls for service that arise, still patrolling and looking for any hot spots along the line that may pop up as we kind of start to transition into a little bit of warmer weather after this kind of front that has come through. So they will continue to have that presence in there. They will continue to be looking and ensuring that the lines are secure and safe. And so that's Branch 11, Divisions Alpha Bravo, and our two repair groups. Coming over into Branch 15, the lower Colonius, upper Colonius, and working our way north along the fire's edge there. A lot of good work has gone in there. The lines are blacked into here now, up to just about Elk Mountain. And so those folks in there, they're developing the repair plans. They're looking at what needs to be done. They're starting to backhaul equipment and trash that was left as a result of the suppression operations. And they're starting to formulate that repair plan so they can go in and start to correct some of the damage that was occurred during the suppression actions. Moving on up into the Elk Mountain area, coming across this road over to Torero. The work is continuing up in there with line prep on that indirect line piece, just enhancing and reinforcing the work that's been done in there that gives that that line in there, that control feature, the best opportunity for success as the fire starts to progress down into this area, and then as the firing operations might commence and buffer off that line there. Working our way up into Cowles, Geronimo, to the Iron Gate trailhead, the campground there. The structure protection work is still ongoing in there. Those folks are in there assessing the structures, continuing to update and validate that defensible space around the structures and improve that. And then as we come up from Iron Gate campground there, working into the wilderness, the work is still ongoing up there. Reinforcing the lines from Iron Gate up to about midway to this 250 area, or the Betty Spike, and then continuing on up to what we're calling the Barrier Breach, which is the divide up there. So that work is ongoing. It's continuing to put those containment lines in, or hand lines in. So that work is expected to take a few more days to get that buttoned up. And then, the next, probably the thing that we'll touch on the most here today as we go into this update is, you guys have all heard about the potential firing operation that's going to be occurring coming out of this Spring Mountain area down along our indirect containment features to bring the fire to those areas. And so part of the process for that is going to be dictated by the natural movement of what the fire has in there. So as it continues to back down into those drainages, make those slope reversals, and move up towards our containment lines, we're going to be taking actions to kind of buffer those in with the firing operations down our containment lines to halt that advancement towards our containment lines. And it's just reducing the refuels, allowing those to back away from the lines in a more moderated intensity, so that when the fire gets there, it what we call lays down and hits those buffers, and it gives us better options to make sure that it stays within those containment lines. And so with that firing operation, or the planned firing operations, they're working very diligently at preparing those. And it's not going to be just a quick, one day, we're going to run around it and get it taken care of. That's going to be done in segments over multiple days, multiple shifts, probably, continuing once it begins for 5 or more days. It's going to be a controlled effort based on fire activity and how we can take that down there. And so, a lot of this country in here too, it's kind of on a road, but we got some indirect dozer lines. So those folks are up there gearing up to put in approximately 5 to 6 miles of hose lay along there. That gives us a better opportunity to really control that fire edge and hold that fire edge where we have implemented those control features. So that's really going to be, that's our main focus. And so we know there's a lot of concerns over that. We know the folks are asking a lot of questions about that and worried about that. And so, for me, and when I think about that and I start, trying to put myself in the shoes of the people in and around these communities here, we have some objectives. We have some things that we go by, and most notably, our first priorities on pretty much every incident that we go to are going to be life and safety of the firefighters and the public. And so we have incident objectives over here, and those are usually always listed as the number one objective. And so if you take away that incident objective, life and safety for the firefighters and the public, our number 2 objective is minimizing the fire impacts to the watersheds, the communities, the cultural, natural resources that are in those areas. So that's our number 2 priority, which when I think about it, that's kind of like our number 1 priority. And so as we start talking about how this firing operation is going to occur in here, those things are top of our priority list of managing that watershed, reducing the effects that the fire is going to have on that watershed, reducing the effects that the fire is going to have on the communities down here in Taro, Cowles, Geronimo, surrounding little outlying areas in those places. So that is a high priority for us. It's in my vision, outside of the life and property for firefighters and public, that's our number 1 priority that we have established over here that this team has put into place and are managing this incident for. And so I think it's just really important to understand that is a huge concern of ours. It's a huge concern of the forest here and the community. And so we're doing what we can to really protect that and ensure that we provide that the best opportunity to minimize and reduce those fire effects. And so for me, I've been involved in this business for almost 30 years, and I've spent a lot of time in other people's backyards in this kind of environment and taking care of these things. And so translating that back, a couple years ago, I was on an incident, a little over 1 million acres in Northern California, and my hometown was impacted. So I know what it's like to think about the wilderness. I know what it's like to have fire at the back of my doorstep. I know what it's like to have family members lose their homes. So for me, it's really important that we take the time to really provide the best chance of this operation being successful, planning it out. We've been planning this out for several days now, multiple days now. Folks on the ground who have a lot of experience, a lot of time doing this. And so as we start to implement this plan, we are taking into consideration those values, the watershed, your communities, your homes, the wilderness that you recreate in, you hunt in, you go out to just look at and enjoy that pristine beauty that is around here. So we understand that. We look forward to being able to provide the protection that we need to do to ensure that that's there in the future. It's going to have some changes. I'm not going to say that it's not. It's going to be a little bit different. And we hope to minimize that with the plan that we have and how we implement that. So we appreciate the comments, we appreciate the questions, and we value the concern, and we really take that to heart as we start to formulate these plans and look at how we're going to do this in a manner that is going to be most proactive for minimizing fire impacts to both private, federal lands and the values at risk on the national forest and in the private lands. So we do take that as a driving force in the plan that we've developed and how we implement that. So with that, continue to send in the comments, continue to send in the questions. And if, as always, if there's anything that you need, you have that PIO hotline that you can call between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Anything outside of that, emergency-wise, you're more than welcome to call that 911 number. The local sheriff, or how that goes to the dispatch centers, will get in contact with our communication centers, and we will dispatch the appropriate resources to go investigate those calls. So With that, I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's briefing on the south zone of the Calf Canyon Hermits Peak Fire. And as always, have a good afternoon, be safe, and take care of each other.